Hi there, Buick owners. Today in your 2019 Buick Envision, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Roadmaster's Diode wiring kit. There's 5 main components you'll need when flat towing your vehicle behind your motorhome. You'll need your tow bar, which is the connection between your motorhome and your vehicle. You'll need your base plate, which is the connection point on your vehicle for your tow bar to attach to. You'll also need your safety cables, which is a supplemental connection in addition to your tow bar. Your diode wiring, which takes all the lighting signals from your motorhome and transfers them to the lights at the back of your vehicle, keeping you DOT compliant in all states, as well as ensuring everybody behind you knows your intentions when going down the road. And lastly, you'll need your supplemental braking system, which will apply the brakes in your vehicle when you hit the brakes in your motorhome. Now, there are some supplemental things that you may want to consider. A high-low adapter may be necessary if your motorhome's receiver sits significantly higher than your base plate. The rule of thumb is you want to measure to the center of each, and they should be within 3 inches. If not, you'll want to look at getting one of these here. We have plenty here at eTrailer.com of varying sizes and weight ratings, so we've got one for your particular setup. Another component you'll want to consider for your Buick Envision is a fuse bypass kit. Because when you put your Buick Envision into flat tow mode, there are 2 fuses that it requires you to pull, and rather than pulling those fuses each time, we can just flick a button and now those fuses are disconnected. When we're ready to drive our vehicle again, we can take it out of flat tow and right back into drive mode. Those fuses are reinserted into the circuit. You can see on our motorhome that we've got the left turn signal on, and it's mimicking it right here on the vehicle. The diodes act as a one-way check valve, and we get wire included with it, so we can take those signals, transfer it back here to the lights. We'll tap into the existing factory circuits, place the diodes in place, so that way when the circuits from the motorhome supply voltage to our lights, it cannot backfeed to the rest of our vehicle because the diodes act as a one-way check valve for electricity. This is going to keep your vehicle nice and safe while transferring all those signals back here, so you don't have to do any other modifications such as the bulb and socket kit where you have to drill a hole and place a bulb in, or have to use a magnetic setup where you're placing them on top of the vehicle every time you want to flat tow. And since you're required to have lights on your vehicle when flat towing it, this is going to keep you DOT compliant in all states, so you don't have to worry about any legal issues. We're using a 6-pole connector here at the front. Now, we're using the kit that didn't come with a 6-pole connector because the tow bar that they purchased came with a 6-pole connector as well as a straight cable to run through the channels in their tow bar. We've got a lot of different tow bars here at eTrailer.com, and one of my favorites is Roadmaster's Falcon All-Terrain. Now that we've gone over some of the features of our diode wiring, why don't you follow along with me in the shop and we'll show you how to get it installed. Before we start our installation, I wanted to point out that we do have our fascia removed because we just got done installing the base plate, and this is the perfect opportunity to install your diode wiring is right after you've put your base plate on, because while that fascia is removed, it's going to be much easier to route your wiring where you need to route it. We'll begin our installation by taking the wiring that comes in our kit, and we're going to route it from the front towards the back where we can connect it into our taillights. We're going to start at our mounting connection on our base plate. Most of your base plates provide a connection place for your connectors for your wiring at the front. And we just took it along the side of the base plate, and then once we got over here to the side where our factory wiring is, we followed that factory wiring up right through the opening here underneath our headlight. And when it comes to that opening here, we then travel down past our battery, and then we head down from here just in front of our coolant bottle. Now, a big part of why we routed up into our engine compartment before going down is because we needed to tap into this for our braking system. So if you have a braking system that needs to tap into your diode wiring like ours did here, then you'll want to route it in a way that's easy to access that so you can make those installation processes. If you don't have a braking system that requires this, like a portable system such as Blue Ox's Patriot, then if you wanted to, you could route it straight down and just along the bottom of the car all the way back. Our wiring comes down through the opening here underneath the vehicle. You can see we still zip tied it to that factory wiring as we went, because that's just going to ensure that we're not going to encounter anything that's moving, such as our steering and suspension components, and also it's going to be away from things excessively hot like our exhaust. From here, though, our wire just continues on towards the back. Again, we're just going to follow factory wiring whenever possible. We're going to go down our driver's side next to the fuel tank, and once we hit the underbody panel here, we are going to run it into this panel. There's a little opening right here, and you can easily get your hands up in here to route this back. Now, once we got towards the back of this panel here, I did cut off the white wire here, and the remaining white wire is still extended onto the rest. We're going to be using that as a jumper wire in a later step. But from this point forward, we need this to be grounded for our connector up at the front. So we can go ahead and strip this back, and we're just going to be connecting it to the frame. I just let it hang out of this little opening down here, just so we knew where it was so we could make that connection. We'll take the white wire now. We're going to strip it back so we can crimp on the ring terminal that comes included with our kit. If you twist the wire, it can be a little easier to get all the strands inside of the ring terminal. I'm just going to slide the ring terminal on. And then we're just going to crimp it down. With the ring terminal attached, we're going to use the included self-tapping screw that comes with our kit to attach it into the underside of the vehicle. We want to try to put it into a channel like the frame. We don't want to run it into the floor so it goes up through the floor so it has a leak. So if you look up, you can see plenty of spots where there are holes like openings, and that's just going to indicate that there's an open channel there, so that way you're not going to be going inside the vehicle. You can see all those holes in the frame there. All those holes are indicating that there is a channel there. Those holes aren't going to go directly into your vehicle. So we're just going to run it right into the frame with an 8mm socket. You can also extend the wire out the side of this panel, and we can put it in here because we can tell there's an opening right there because we can see the little square, so we know we're not going into the vehicle there. From there, the rest of our wiring is going to continue on towards the rear. And once we get over here on our driver's side, we're going to take our wiring and route it up. We only need the brown, white, and yellow wire to go up, and this is the rest of that white wire that I was talking about that we're going to use as a jumper to go over to the other side. The green wire we're going to be routing over towards the passenger side, so you want to make sure you peel that off. You can just grab the green wire and it'll actually just peel right off of there. If you're having a difficult time peeling it, you can cut in between the wires and that'll just give you a little start to make it peel back easier. Here you can see the green wire where I routed it over towards the passenger side, and this is the rest of that white wire that I also routed over there. You can see the white wire here is going from passenger side over to driver's side, and this is the rest of the wire that we had from where we cut it to install our ground. This is the rest of the wire going back. We're now at the back of the vehicle. To get the wiring routed up behind the taillights, we're going to need to remove those. We use a flat-bladed screwdriver and just stick it in the little opening. Give your screwdriver a little twist and that'll pop the cap off here, revealing the screw behind it. It's a Torx head bolt that we're going to remove with a T15 Torx socket. Once you have that screw removed, the taillight does just pull straight rearward, but it can be difficult to work it out. Sometimes you'll want to use a little plastic tool. This one came out pretty easy, but if it doesn't want to wiggle out of there, a little trim panel tool like this, you can use it up here towards the front to help give you a little start on getting it out. Now that we've got our assembly out of the way, we can push back on the lock tab to release it and then disconnect our electrical connector. We're going to do the same thing over on the passenger side to remove that taillight. We can now pull our wiring up. You can see straight down through there, so it's pretty easy to get the wiring up, but if you're having some difficulties with it, I'd recommend using a coat hanger or something along that you can just poke down there and just tape your wire to it, and you can pull it right back up. Once we've got it pulled up, we're going to need to take each of these wires and we're going to have to separate them, and then we're going to strip them back. So we're just cutting in between them. That just makes it a little bit easier because these do just pull right apart. But getting that nice little start in there makes it less painful on your fingers. Now that we've got them pulled back, we're just going to strip each one. I like to strip my brown and my white just a little bit longer because we are going to be twisting these two together. We'll then take the brown and the white wires, twist those two together, and we can now crimp on the spade terminals that come included with our kit onto our wires here. We're going to be using the yellow one for the twisted pair of wires as it is a larger opening, and we're going to be using blue on our yellow wire. So just like we did with our ring terminal down below, we're just going to push those on and crimp them into place. We'll now need to tap into our factory wiring. So we're going to pull off the sheathing. There may be some tape on it as well that you can just peel off or use a razor knife to slice it off there. Just be careful. We're going to be using pins 1 and 3 on both the driver and passenger side for our wires. And on our driver's side here, that's going to be the gray wire with the yellow stripe, which is our stop-turn circuit, and the white wire with the yellow stripe, which is our tail light circuit. So we're just going to kind of bring these back a little bit of ways from the connector, but still giving ourselves some room to work there. And we're going to cut both of these wires. Now that we've got them cut, we're going to strip back each end of these wires. On each of these wires, now that they're stripped, we're going to crimp on blue spade terminals. We can now start connecting our diodes. The out on our diode is always going to go towards the bulb or the LED on your light, so that's going to be our connector side here. So we can go ahead and plug in the out. The same colored wire that we just plugged into the out, we're going to be plugging that wire back into the in, completing our circuit back together. Doesn't matter which one of the ins that you plug it to, the other one's going to go to our new wiring that we brought over. And since our gray-yellow wire is our stop-turn circuit, we want to make sure that we connect our stop-turn wire that we routed, which is going to be the yellow wire. So we're just going to poke that guy on there. And then our other diode's going to work pretty much the same way. Out is always towards the bulb. We need to recomplete our circuit, so we're going to plug these back in. And then lastly, we're going to plug in our taillight wire, which is the double wire here. Now what I like to do with the diodes is stick them together. They do have an adhesive pad, so you could stick it behind the panel. But in most cases, if you stick it behind there, you're going to have a difficult time getting that taillight assembly in and out without pulling these off. And it can be difficult to determine an appropriate place to put them where it's not going to be in the way of installing your taillight assembly. So if we just do this, it's going to keep them from clinking together. And then we can just put our sheathing back on. And we're going to reinstall this taillight assembly, and we're going to repeat the exact same procedures over on the other side. It's going to still be pins 1 and 3, but I'll go ahead and show you that side so you can see the wire colors that are over there. So over here on the other side, we made similar connections here. The green wire on this side is going to be our stop-turn circuit. And even though it was white-yellow on the other side for the tail, it's white-yellow on this side for the stop-turn. On this side, it's going to be the purple wire for your tail light circuit. But those are still pins number 1 and 3 on your connector. So you can always refer back to that as well. And as you remember, the white wire here is the tail light wire that we're jumpering from the driver's side over to this side. We can now reinstall the tail light assemblies. Just want to tuck those diodes out of the way, make sure that it fully seats back into place. Then you're just going to reinstall your screw and clip the little cover back into place. Now the next step would be to connect our wiring back here at the front to our 6-pole connector, or if you had ordered the kit with your 4-pole connector, you would just be done. But before we install our 6-pole connector and make our connections to that, we are going to reinstall the fascia, because I would just have to take it right back off in order to get the fascia back on for it to fit and everything. So I recommend that you get that back together and just poke this wiring out. That's why we left enough excess here at the front so we can make our connections and then get this installed. Now that we've got our fascia reinstalled, we can go ahead and install our connector. If you did have the 4-pole flat here at the front, you could just secure it right here at the front and your installation's done. But our customers opted for the 6-pole connector for additional accessories. So we are going to be installing that. These will either come included with your kit, depending on the one you purchased, or if you got just the bare wire kit, you can pick up a 6-pole connector here at eTrailer.com. Many Roadmaster tow bars do come with this connector too, so you wanted to check those when you're making your purchase. So we've got a little bit more excess here than we need, so we're going to go ahead and trim off some of our excess. I always like to leave some excess, so you can easily pull this out if you want to add more accessories or do anything like that in the future. Now that we've got the excess trimmed off, we're going to separate each one of these wires and strip them back just like we did at the back. We'll then want to take the dust boot off the back of our connector, and we're just going to slide that over our wires. You can just poke that up in there until we're ready for it. Go ahead and twist each end. It just makes it a little bit easier to get your wires installed and ensure that no strands pop out, potentially short from one circuit to another. But now we're ready to begin attaching them to the connector. They are labeled on here, and I recommend starting with ground, which is labeled GD. And we're going to unscrew that one. And we're just going to go clockwise around it. Next is TM, which is our taillight circuit. We're going to be using that one. Next is the S circuit, which we're not going to be using, but can be used for accessories. Then we have RT, which is our right turn. We will be using that, and that is our green wire. And then we have LT, which is left turn, which we will be using, which is our yellow wire. And the center pin we won't be using. That again is for additional accessories if you want to add those. So just like we did when we unscrewed them, we're just going to insert each wire now into its appropriate hole and then screw it back down. So we just went around in a circle, so we're just going to start back with ground and slide it in, which is labeled GD, and then tighten it down. Once we've got our ground hooked up, we're just going to go around in a circle connecting the rest of them. So it'll be our tail light, our right turn, and then our left turn, which is our brown, our green, and our yellow. Now that we've got each one connected, we're going to apply a generous amount of dielectric grease to the back side of our connector. This is going to keep out any moisture and ensure a long-lasting connection. You can pick up some dielectric grease here at eTrailer.com if you need some. And we just want to get it all over everything there because we're going to just encapsulate this inside of our dust boot. We'll then just slide our boot down. And then I like to seal off each end and ensure our dust boot doesn't slide off using a little bit of electrical tape. We can then attach our connector to our base plate, and we're going to be using the hardware that came provided with our base plate. Now that we've got it installed, we can go ahead and plug in our tester, or you can plug it into the back of your motorhome and ensure everything's working properly. So we've got our tester plugged in, and we're just going to make sure everything's working. You want to make sure you have your left turn signal, right turn signal, tail lamps, and brake lamps. With everything working properly, we're ready to hook up to our motorhome and hit the road. And that completes our look at Roadmaster's Diode wiring kit on our 2019 Buick Envision.